Hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Avini Vibes. I love it. The vibes are just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. As somebody just said, as we were getting on board here, our pictures are getting smaller because yes, each week. So we're happy that we're here and we're happy that you're here. We are recording, just FYI. And if it looks like it's going to be noisy or loud where you are, just go ahead and mute yourself. Okay, we appreciate that. And my name is Christine Orlando. I am from New York, and I'm very excited to be working with Avini. And I can't even tell you how proud I am because the leadership is just awesome. And tonight we're very thrilled to have two special people with us. We have two speakers tonight with us joining us, and we have Chris Bruce. And Chris is coming all the way in from Spokane, Washington. Is that right, Chris? And then we
Yeah,
also have Chip Littlejohn. And honestly, I don't know where he is right now because he travels a lot, but we're blessed to have him every time on this call because he travels, but he always comes and he's with us as well. So, and Kyle's in the house too. So we're excited for being here tonight, all of you. And with that, I want to just let you know that Chris have listened to on recording so far. I haven't met him in person, but I do plan on meeting Chris Bruce in Dallas in October because he's got a special story and he's going to share his story. He's been with Avini for quite some time. He's got a lot of wisdom to share. And he also explains the comp plan in our little back office that we have on that Avini training. So take a peek at that if you need any understanding, and then you can always reach out to Kyle, and Kyle can help you walk you through that as well. Don't mind that I'm offering you up, Kyle, do you? All right. Well, these guys are awesome. And with that, Chris Bruce, thank you so much for being with us today. I understand that you are in a contracting business for many years, but please, how'd you get involved in Avini? Why Avini? And if you don't mind sharing your story, we are grateful that you're doing that with us. So welcome.
sure. And j just a shout out to Kyle. Several years ago, he was my teacher who taught me how comp plans work in this style. It was very different for me. I'd been in other companies that were all the old-fashioned way of doing network marketing, and then I joined Kyle's team, and it was a completely different style. It was a more collaborative than competitive style, and just the way he builds teams was just an absolute revelation. So I've been trying to do it Kyle's way ever since. So why am I in Avini? It kind of goes back before Avini even existed. I come from a pretty medical family. Going way back, my ancestors came from Scotland into Canada, from Canada into Wyoming, and in Wyoming they were coal miners. And so my great grandpa and great grandpa um, dug big holes in the ground and lived down in them and did dirty work. My grandpa put up with that through his teens and decided he didn't want to do that kind of work anymore, and so he went to college and got into engineering and all sorts of stuff and made sure that his kids went through school. And so if you look at my aunts and uncles, that generation, and my dad, they're all in medicals or science or some sort of um, program like that. And my stepmother's side, they're everything from psychiatrists to researchers to biologists to chiropractors. And so high education and medical training was pretty much where I was supposed to go. And so when I'm 4 years old, my dad's got flashcards and he's trying to teach me, the names of bones and giving me medical books to read and stuff like that to, teach me to read before kindergarten. And, just that was the plan. And so my whole life up through high school, I was going to go to medical school and I was going to be a doctor. And I got a scholarship. It was a full ride. And to celebrate that, my friend Sean bought tickets to go see Sting in concert. And we were driving there in his truck, and a logging truck lost its load in front of us at 75 miles an hour on the freeway. And we went through the pile of big cut up logs, and it stopped our truck pretty much dead. And we front flipped over the pile and rolled into the oncoming traffic, where we were hit by another car and rolled down the embankment on the other side. Did not get to see Sting. I woke up in the hospital. I had multiple concussions, broke both my hands, cracked my sternum, dislocated my hips, had lots and lots of intervention. There's over 60 stitches in my fingers, putting them back together. Um, and for about 4 years, I had continuous seizures. I had progressive memory loss. I'd forget my name. That thing that you scoop food with. I couldn't come up with the word spoon. Just regular things that were common knowledge I couldn't do anymore. So I didn't get to go to medical school. Lost the scholarship, and pretty much just lived instead of as a doctor as a patient. And for several years went through that, finally got to where I was feeling better, was going through physical therapy, and the doctor said, it's time, you're 22 years old, go out and run around, you're still a young guy, go play sports, have fun, you know. And so I did, and my very first outing was playing flag football. And within about 30 minutes I was trying to break up a fight between a bunch of 20 to 25-year-old guys, and I ended up on the bottom of a dog pile because they didn't stop to not hit the scrawny kid with glasses who was just recovering from major injuries. They went through me to get to each other, and ended up having three vertebrae shattered in my low back, dislocated my neck, tore muscles and ligaments up and down my spine on the left side, and ended up paralyzed from the waist down temporarily. Once the neck healed, all the feeling came low body, and with that, a lot of pain. So again, I was back as a patient for several years, and at the end of it, they got to a point where they said, "We can't help you anymore, but here's a bunch of pain pills. Good luck." And that's where I was left. And so I essentially became addicted to pain pills. That's the only way I could live. I wore a body brace and had trouble getting around, doing much of anything. And my grandparents were introduced to this really weird, hokey voodoo company from Japan, and they were so excited that it was going to heal me with their new technologies that Western medicine knew nothing about. And because I'd been on the Western medicine side for my whole life, I would not accept it. And so when grandma invited me to come see the magic stuff, I didn't show. I no showed grandma. I did that repeatedly. And then she invited me for dinner. And when I got to her house for dinner, there was no food, but there was a very excited network marketer. And he told me all about their stuff. And I couldn't run very fast. So grandma and grandpa caught me, laid me on the floor in the living room, and they rolled magnets up and down my back. And I reacted to it. Something happened and I felt better. And so I started using weird, hokey stuff from Japan, and I got better. And within a few months, I was off my drugs. And it changed my perception about what was possible. And I'd always had a negative idea of what network marketing was, because I had an uncle who signed up in the same company 7 different times because they told him it wasn't that company. And he believed them. And then he found out a month later that it was, and he quit. And anyways, that's what I thought it was. So it was selling weird stuff and lying to your friends and family. But once it worked for me, I at least could believe the products would work. And then about a year later, I'm feeling much better. No pain pills, no body brace, walking around like normal. And I ran into a woman that I used to sit across from in a physical therapy office while she was getting her back worked on. And I was better, and she was not. She hadn't changed. I'd known about it for over a year, and I hadn't told anybody. And so I decided I needed to start sharing it. And that's where I got into network marketing in general, was that from that first person, because I shared it with her and she had the same result I did. And so for the last 27 years, I've introduced people to weird stuff that the Western medicine doesn't know about. I've helped people find solutions when there isn't one, when they've been told by their doctors, good luck, we can't help you anymore. Um, well, maybe there is something you can try. And a lot of times it is when a person takes personal responsibility for their own health and they're not waiting for some sort of intervention. You have to go out and look, because we're all so very different. There's a lot of different things that can change us. And so, like I said, it's been 27 years, but 3 years ago, my father-in-law got really sick. He got one of those prostate exams. You don't want to have any kind of prostate exam, but he got one of the ones that he failed. And turned out that he had some problems. And he's the healthiest guy I know. He eats right for as long as I've known him. There is no garbage going into that guy, and still he got sick. So how did that happen? He threw the kitchen sink at it. I mean, he's been into nutrition for over 30 years, and just knows it backwards and forwards. And everything he knew didn't help. he called in all the favors, all his friends, and it didn't help. But then someone told him, "Oh, you should talk to Marcy Littlejohn. I think she's got something." And it turned out that Marcy did. And so Marcy and Chip, there's Chip right there, told him about Cell Defender, about micronized activated zeolite. And he started using it, and his problems went away in a very short period of time once he started the Marcy dose. And so I still kind of have that chip on my shoulder about Western medicine a little bit. And so when they told me it was dirt in a bottle, it was it was a bridge too far for me. And so I googled it really quick and went, okay, this is stuff that's used for cleaning up oil spills. It's for cleaning sewage. I don't think drinking is going to be good for anybody, but it worked for Dave. And so I'm also experimental. So I had a good friend named Joe, and I've been in the scouting program for a long time. For 20 years, I was a scoutmaster, and I had 4 of Joe's 5 sons growing up in various programs that I ran. And about that same time, Joe told me that he had the same problem that Dave did, and so we got him some Cell Defender, and he tried it, and he got the same results as Dave. And so, this is 3 years ago. He's not supposed to be around because it wasn't going well, but we just had his 60th birthday on Saturday. He's still here and he's fine. He has no problems. And so that's really why I'm here, is because there's a lot of people that are looking for some sort of solution. They're looking for some sort of help. And it's just kind of hard to find through all the noise. You have to have someone who's willing to come out and share it with you, someone who's willing to do the reading, do the study, listen to the calls, go to the meetings, and really understand all of this stuff. And once they do, be willing to share it, not be hoarding their secret to themselves. You have to be willing when someone says, things aren't going good. I don't feel good. This thing is happening, and being willing to say, well, have you ever heard of? And just ask a couple of questions and let them complain. Let them tell you everything that's wrong, and then say, could I get you on the phone with somebody? Your story sounds like something I've just heard. And just as simple as that, you get them on the phone with somebody, and you don't have to be the super expert in anything. You just get them to talk to somebody else, and it might be upline, downline, crossline somewhere. Someone in Avini can share the story that a cleaner, healthy body fixes itself. What
Can I
if we
jump in?
can
I want to
get
jump in just
like
a moment because I see we have a couple of guests on the phone, and I'm not sure if they understand the dirt in the bottle. So Chip or Chris, you want to just give that a little overview, if you would? The zeolite.
sure? Yeah. So our Cell Defender, or Chip, do you want to take it over?
Actually, I'm enjoying listening to you, Chris, as usual. So go and I'll do something after a while.
Okay. So Cell Defender is our flagship product. It's reason most of us are here. And so why I call it dirt in a bottle, it literally is a volcanically formed crystal. It looks like sand. It's all over the planet. Pretty much everywhere there's been a volcano, anywhere near seawater, there's going to be some zeolite somewhere in the ground. And it's unique in that it's one of the very few naturally occurring minerals that has a strong negative charge. And a lot of our cells have a negative charge. And the things that are bad for us tend to have a positive charge, and they're bad for us because positive and negative like to stick together. And so bad things get in us and we can't kick them out. And so things like lead and mercury, arsenic, those kinds of things, aluminum, a lot of solvents and volatile organic compounds like benzene and herbicides and pesticides, they get in our body somewhere and they cause damage. They mess up our DNA, they poison our cells, they make our bones grow wrong, they interfere with natural processes that make our immune system work, and they just circulate and circulate until eventually they land somewhere and stay. And once they've been there for a little while, we call that a disease. And so if you Google any disease you don't want with heavy metals, just about all of them, it's either caused by it or made worse by the heavy metal. And so this negatively charged particle has been used for 700-800 years. If someone gets poisoned, they eat something bad, they could eat this sand and it would bind up the bad stuff before it spread through their body and it would go out. Rick Deich back in the late 90s, early 2000s, he found a way to make that zeolite so that the little particles were small enough and also able to clean everything that they've just naturally grabbed for as long as they've lain in the dirt. And that's called activation. But make it small enough so it gets outside of the digestive tract and into the bloodstream. So all of those places that your body has hid things, where it swept something up under the rug because it couldn't get rid of it, it starts pulling those things out. And usually 60 to 90 days of taking a fairly high dose of it, you'll pull out decades worth of bad storage. And one by one, those systems turn back on. Your body's able to fold proteins right. Your kidneys are under less stress. Your liver doesn't have to work as hard. Your blood vessels are cleaner, and even your fat, which none of us really want to have. Your fat gets cleaner because that's one of the places that our body stores the most garbage, is in that inactive tissue. And so dirt in a bottle is sometimes they call it rock juice, but it's just a little tiny bottle, and it's filled with very, very pure water and very, very active micronized zeolite, a specific one called clinoptilolite. So.
Thank you. That was very, very informative. I appreciate you doing that. Okay, I think we had another question, Chris, about if someone could talk a little bit about the nano silver, because that's another product we're seeing so much success. Matter of fact, Carol, just share with the guests that just joined us, if you would, what happened to you with the nano silver spraying on your arms.
Sure. So yeah, so I have brown spots all over my arms. And they're, they're age spots. And I was like, and then Deidre Thornton came on and said, spray it on your body, all over your body. And I was like, well, okay. So I decided to do a test, and I used just it on my one arm and left the other arm. And boy, what a difference. My left arm looks like I'm 40 years old. My right arm looks like I'm 80. And I took pictures of it, and you'll have to see it because you wouldn't believe it. You wouldn't believe it until you see these pictures. But now I've decided, since I'm going to Dallas, that I'm going to have this matching arm. So I'm starting to spray the second arm now. So they match. I have a matching pair. But yes, major difference, major, and only a month of doing it every day that I would spray it. But
thank you, Carol. Thank you. So, Chris, do you want to speak to that a little bit about perhaps the nano silver?
Sure. So the nano silver, most people have heard of colloidal silver, which we've had for a long time, and that's just when you break down silver using electricity into these little random little tiny bits that you shake the bottle and they float. And it's really good for if you get an infection in the skin or there's something on you that's trying to attack you. Because silver really does have a purifying effect. A lot of plants will use silver and actually make a nano type of silver by breaking it down from the soil and drawing that silver up through the plant bodies, and it protects them from things like funguses and molds and even bacteria. And for a long time, a lot of families have silverware sets that have been passed down for generations. Great grandma Ethel's silverware that we keep in a drawer and never use. But the reason that we have silverware in general ever is because in just about every culture, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, they found that people who ate off of silver plates or used silver cups or silverware, knives and fork and spoon, got sick less often from the food that they ate, because literally taking food that's got a little bacteria on it and slapping it on a silver plate, that silver plate will start killing the bacteria in the food while it's sitting there. And just a lot of these really primitive organisms that like to kill us don't like silver. So it's like a Hollywood movie, the holy water for vampires. You touch these bad critters with silver and it unzips them or removes their protective coating, just really messes up their ability to make us sick. And so colloidal silver has been around for a long time. It does have some problems. because it is random sizes and random shapes. If you drink it, it tends to get stuck in you somewhere, not all of it and not all the time, but over time it does build up. And even though the silver itself is safe, it's non-toxic because it doesn't bind with us. If it is stuck somewhere, it's still a foreign body, and that causes inflammation. And too much of it built up actually causes a condition where your skin turns blue. We have a guy that lives here in the Coeur d'Alene, Spokane area, and he got some sort of illness 30-40 years ago and heard about colloidal silver. He makes it at his house and he drinks it by the gallon, and his skin is bright blue. He has a big white beard similar to Chip's, and he wears a red cap and he calls himself Papa Smurf. It's not life threatening, but it's weird and it's permanent. Once you go blue, you don't go back. So it does have some issues. Now, the nanospherical silver is made in a different way. Instead of using an electrical current, it uses plasma ablation to create essentially a vaporized silver, and then it's cooled at a very specific temperature and pressure, and it makes identical little tiny particles of silver, and they're round, they're smooth, they don't have jagged edges that can snag on different parts of you, and they're very, very, very small. So if you take the average size of a piece of colloidal silver, you can make around 200,000 pieces of the nano silver out of that one.
Wow.
How interesting. Now, somebody asked a question about, is it okay to ingest the nano silver? Oh, did he freeze?
Yes,
I
he's,
think I froze.
no, he's frozen.
Am I frozen?
No.
I think Chris is frozen. Chip, do you want to jump in? I think Chris is frozen.
Yeah, Chris did a great job talking about
He just went,
nano and the details. We actually lost him, so he must not have had enough bandwidth there for a minute.
He might jump back on his
So-
phone. Be prepared for this just in case. So you might see another
Yeah,
phone.
watch for him. Watch for him if you would. Yes, the answer is yes. The intention of preparing nano silver in this special way is so that you can be able to safely and continuously, if you wish, long term, use this product internally. And he kind of went through the concerns the other way. Here's me saying it kind of simply. This is exactly the right size and shape. We went through a huge effort to make it, 200 atoms, 7 nanometers across, protected and held in that exact size and shape by a single layer of silver oxide tetrahedrons. Now, here's the magic language. If it gets too big, it can turn you blue. That's colloidal. Everybody knows what that is. If it gets too little, that's ionic. That can damage your immune system. So you don't want either of those. This Avini Nano is the Goldilocks size and shape. Throughout our product line, size and shape are critical to everything. And so you should get the benefits you're looking for. So what we've got here is something that is highly mobile within the body and it does not get stuck there. If you want to, play with these two products together, and Chris just did a good job of talking about both of these products. So we have Avini Cell Defender here, Avini Nano Silver here. There's the two of them together. You could look at those like the old Clint Eastwood movie with Lee Van Cleef, which was called, I think it was For a Few Dollars More. And they were bounty hunters. And when a bounty hunter comes into town, what does the wanted poster on the wall say? It says, wanted, dead, or alive. Well, actually, Cell Defender can deal with problems that are both dead and alive, but it's best at wanted dead. So the pollution, the heavy metals, the solvents, the benzene, those kind of things, that really is the world of Avini Cell Defender. Wanted alive is this one. So yeah, kind of using that because that's a little catchy. Wanted, dead, or alive. I'm trying to get it to show up here. It's picking up my hand. There we go. Wanted, dead, or alive. This is capable of selectively killing things that are alive within us without hurting our cells or our beneficial microbiome. Incredible selectivity. Here, you have two levels of selectivity. Throughout the product line, the selectivity is absolutely crucial. This removes the biologically toxic metals, heavy metals, ones that are too heavy, too strongly charged. It does not remove the biologically active metals. You could call this a gigantic advancement in the world of chelation. Chelate means to claw out. So if you ever were around the old-fashioned chelation, where they used EDTA as an intravenous intervention to claw out the metals, you know that the people didn't like doing it. It made them feel sick. They had to go to a doctor. They had to have an IV put in their arm, had to have this stuff pumped through them. And it was pretty good at pulling lead, but it was also wonderful at pulling out your beneficial metals. So when you come into the Avini Cell Defender, gigantic leap forward in the area of chelation. That's what this is. Chelate, to claw out, and that's what it does. So it attracts, traps, transports, and gently facilitates excretion in the urine. When you take that product, the very next time you pee, you're peeing poison. And every time thereafter, it is nothing more than hygiene. The ability to take a shower on the inside and wash away things that you could not get at before. That's essentially, just kind of tying those two products together that Chris gave us a wonderful background on. I did want to take just a second on the introduction, make sure I got it right when they were introducing Chris. They essentially said Chris Bruce is a bearded Scottish Highlander. Bill and Lisa will keep his portrait on their wall and even show it in the Zooms. Am I getting this right? Did I get, at least that's what I thought I heard. I don't know. Anyway, it's wonderful to have a chance to work around Chris Bruce. And to be honest, I knew he'd been beaten up in a half a dozen different ways on his way to getting here. I guess maybe it just finally sunk in on me, all the things that had happened as he told his story tonight. And I have to tell you, we are very fortunate to have him. I had no idea that, figure this out. Once again, if I heard this properly, Chris Bruce said that Kyle Helm is his networking ancestor. And but here's the precious thing in that. In the way that they both, and these guys are two of the best people in the entire profession, in the entire industry, when it comes to understanding and presenting compensation plans. I always joke and say it's a conversation plan because we get paid for having conversations, but those two guys can see and they love it. To me, when that part comes up, Marcy steps up. And I wanted to give a 30-second business training because I know this is a really important month for a lot of people, and you're probably reaching for promotions this month. And one of the most important things or useful things you can do when you are striving to reach a goal, like before conference, something like that. And be prepared to write down a number. This is Marcy's cell number. It is, and call her because she's really, really good. Really good at this. That skill is probably what allows us to be who we are. It's not me. I'm not the smart one. Okay, just so you know. She is 308-641-1876. Okay, I'm 1875. She's 1876, and just tell her Kyle Helm sent you, and you'll be treated like you're the most important thing in the whole world. So let her help. She really is good at structure and strategy. So that was the business part of my presentation.
Thank you, Chip. Thank you for sharing that with us.
You bet.
And Chris, we want you to come back on, and we may have a question or two. If you have a question for Chris, you can raise your hand. If you can physically raise it, or go down to the bottom and raise your hand if you have a question for him. And if there are no questions, Chris, I just want to you share with us also something that recently happened. I was on a conference call with our CEO, Neil Roth, and Neil was sharing something that happened to you, and you were healing from it at that time. And a lot of prayer requests went out for you, but you did something called ranking up, and like, wow, he's on a gurney, but he's ranking up. So that's pretty powerful. But we're glad that you're here and you're well.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm doing well. Yeah, if anybody has a question, go ahead, and if not, then I'll tell that story.
All right.
Okay.
Go for it.
So I told you my dad was a doctor, but he was a little unconventional. He was one of the doctors that was a do as I say, not as I do doctor. And he was, 2 to 5 packs a day for most of his life. And so it'd be kind of like, with the cigarette in his hand, you got to quit smoking. It's going to kill you. That was my dad. And so when he was 47, he was celebrating his birthday in Las Vegas and he had a heart attack. And he survived it. But over the next 9 years, he had several cardiac events, they call them, where they're not a full heart attack, but something's going wrong. And then he was still a successful doctor, even with all of this. He and a group of doctors went down to South America and they opened several free clinics. And they would travel down 2 or 3 times a year and spend, 3 weeks, traveling through and doing treatments. And he got sick on the last trip. And when he came home, they just thought he had the flu, but he just wasn't feeling good. And he had a big heart attack at their celebration for coming home, and died in a room full of 15, 20 doctors, and there was nothing they could do. And so we all assumed it was just because of the smoking. But this May, I turned 50 and was going to do some service for a friend of mine. He's 95 years old. His basement had flooded, and so we're doing a problem solving. Why did his basement flood? And saw that his rain gutters were sagging down. And so I got a ladder, climbed up to his gutters and saw that they had been clogged, unclogged the gutters, climbed back down and kind of slipped on the last step. And I felt like a shooting pain go up my neck. And I was like, oh, throwing my neck out, something wrong. I'll go to the chiropractor later. But over the next 30 minutes, I felt worse and worse and worse, and then pain in my hands. And turned out I was having a heart attack. And I drove myself to the urgent care, and they put me in an ambulance, sent me to the hospital. And when I got to the hospital, they're doing all the tests. They took blood in the ambulance, and they took blood when I got there. They were doing, the EKG. I think they did 3 of them. They were, testing blood pressure. I mean, every test that they could do. Multiple people had every limb, and they were pulling something out of it. But they kept going, why are you having a heart attack? Because my blood pressure was fine, my heart rate was fine, my cholesterol was fine, all my blood work was coming back normal, but my heart was still having this freak out attack. It turned out that I had a congenital defect in my heart that we just didn't know about. And so the inside of my arteries around my heart, they're supposed to be smooth and gently taper towards the heart and, branch and branch and branch and feed the heart blood. Well, mine don't do that. They take a whole bunch of 90-degree turns inside. And so even though my cholesterol was fine, normal cholesterol isn't healthy for me because the inside of my blood vessels aren't smooth. And so that was causing my heart, and apparently for my entire life, to have not enough blood flow. And so they tried to put a stent in, but because of those little jagged edges, they couldn't get the stent in. So they went, well, we have to do open heart surgery. It'll probably be a one-way bypass. And then they did more tests. Well, we'll probably have to do a double bypass. And a little while later, well, it's probably going to be a triple. And when they got in there, it was a quadruple bypass. And so by the time we got to the staging area before the surgery, it was the last day of the month. And so even though I'd had a heart attack, it was the last day of the month. And so I'd been on the phone texting in between tests because I had people who were really close to getting ranks. And so I kept going. And so at one point, because they were going to be taking arteries, they shaved me from about my bottom lip down to my toes. And I was on the phone while they did that. And I just kept going. And then they put things in my mouth and my throat, and I couldn't talk anymore. And so I was texting, and Neil Roth texted me, and he said, are you going to go diamond? Because I was really close. And I says, well, I can't talk, but my thumbs work. And so I was texting away, and I made the last few connections. I called for help. I reached out to friends and said, can you make a couple of calls for me? This person still needs help. And they put me under. And when they got in there, it was supposed to be a 4-hour surgery. It turned out to be a 9-hour surgery, because when they lifted my heart out, they found another defect that did not show up on any of the scans, and that had to be fixed. And so that 4 hours turned into 9. But when I woke up, I got to go back and look, and I had made diamond while I was laying on a surgical table back in May. So that was very exciting. I had a lot of help. My team just worked and worked and worked and worked, and we helped a whole bunch of people hit brand new ranks. And so, when 30 or 40 people in your business do the best they've ever done, and get the highest paycheck that they've ever got, then you go up too. And that's really the big thing about it, is you help as many people as possible get as far as they can. And if you do that, you get going further. So it's you can run as fast as you can, and that's as fast as you can go. But if you're pushing and pulling with friends, you can go a lot faster.
Oh, that's so wonderful to hear that story. And that's what I wanted to end with, was the fact that this is a team effort. Doesn't matter on where you are, what leg, but it is
Could
absolutely
I
a team
leap off of
effort.
that a
And when I
little
heard
bit,
that story sharing
Christine?
about you, oh,
Before
absolutely.
you,
I was going to throw it back over to you because I love your
well, I
recaps
was
and the
just going to
stories
say,
you tell.
before you bring it in for a landing, listening to Chris's story there. Now, he has a great wife, a house full of kids, and another business. And, obviously is a great enthusiast about living. And when people tell you I'm not a salesman, say, well, are you an enthusiast? I mean, nobody doesn't want to be an enthusiast, but listen to that story. And throughout, he's saying, I had something important to live for. And I was engaged in it the entire time. It's incredible. And something important to live for is a precious thing. There's one other thing I wanted to get out of Chris's story, and that was his dad opening clinics in South America. I started this morning on a phone with all the doctors on staff on a Zoom at a clinic in South America. And they were especially interested in the anti-inflammatory effects of Plus Relief. The person who introduced me wanted to introduce them to the concept of zeolite, knowing they had some, but it wasn't ours. And their response was, we already have it, we use it, it's in all of our tumor protocols, except for the brain, because we have troubles when we use it for people who have troubles in the brain. And that left me with a gigantic opportunity. I said, in our world, it's, exactly the opposite. That's one of the most important places to use it, prepared as we have it. And you will hear along the way stories about people who've had their skulls opened up after using this product. And the trouble in the brain is those tumors grow down into the folds. And so you can't really take everything off. You can debulk it, but you can't get the stuff that's out of the folds. And this is a story from MD Anderson. They wound up calling Rick to say, okay, tell us what we just saw. And the guy lifts off the top of the skull, picks up the edge of it. It looks like the disease is distressed, and begins to pull it up, and the thing comes out, roots and all. And he goes back and he's able to tell, what do you want to hear after you go through a surgery like that? What did Chris want to hear? We had a successful outing. In the case of that brain thing, we got it all. And the guy was able to say, I can't believe I'm telling you this, but I think we got it all. So tell me what I just saw. And the family said, well, the only thing I can tell you is he's been using that little bottle on the corner of the dresser. And so they got a whole bunch of administrators together. And this is what Dave Johnson calls the how it builds up with the giant ice flows, and then they all freeze, then they crawl back, and it's kind of like that, because at that point, a whole bunch of people from MD Anderson got Rick on the phone, and he was expecting to have to explain, all the details about how it works. And they just had one question: how do we get this? But unfortunately, the standard of care is so powerful and so rigid that you can't ask that question. You can't say, well, you can say, you keep doing what you were doing, Chris, because all of your numbers were so great and you survived what others probably could not have. But the question that's so rare and so precious is the person who says, I very seldom get to give that kind of good news. As a matter of fact, you are the best patient I've ever had. I would like to have that result for all my patients. How did you do it? That's the big question. And I'd see no difficulty in making that leap. But unfortunately, we wind up pulled back within the confines. It's the crabs pulling, or the lobsters pulling them back into the cage, sort of a thing. And it is powerful. It really is powerful. But those two things just jumped out at me as Chris was telling the rest of that story. And so thank you for those extra couple of minutes, Christine.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Chip. It's so amazing how small the world is, but how big the world is, and how we're going to have to do this one person at a time, sharing with our loved ones and our neighbors, for sure. Don't be afraid to share it, because these stories just get better and better every day, the success that we're seeing. Chris, I want to give you the floor before we say goodnight. And if there's anything you want to leave us with. You left us with a lot already, but we do want to, again, thank you and just give you the opportunity to invite us all to Dallas. How's that?
Okay. Well, if you've never been to one of these things, I recommend, however you got to get there. My first big one that I ever went to, and this is years and years and years ago, I always had the excuse, well, it's a long way to go. It's really expensive. Got to take off work. The first time I really committed to do something like this, we rented 2 Suburbans and we filled them to being uncomfortable. And between I think there were 21 of us in the 2 vehicles. People didn't have seat belts. We were overfilling them. But we rented a big beach house in Long Beach, California, and it did more for my business in one weekend than the previous year. And going to Avini, we're a brand new baby company. We're setting the foundations for what's going to be in the future. Going to the first few of these, you're going to make connections with people that you'll never meet any other way. You're going to be able to not be, Zooms are great. We can see each other's faces and stuff like that, but you can sit across the table from somebody right before or right after one of these things, and you're breaking bread together, you're talking, you're joking, you're making those connections. There's going to be stories you hear. Just the networking part of network marketing is the powerful part. That's the thing that sets it apart. Anything else, you can have stuff on a shelf, you can have boardroom meetings, all of those kinds of things, and everybody dog eat dog. In this one, you have a huge group of people that are all going the same direction, and they want you to win too. And I would just say, if there's any possible way to get there, get there. Even if it's slightly impossible, find a way to get there, and you will not regret it. And the only thing you can do wrong is go by yourself. I mean, go by yourself is good, but you will regret not having people with you. So take your team, your upline, your downline, your crossline, somebody from your town, somebody who's never seen it, but they'd like to see Dallas. Say, come to Dallas and you can see the sights. And as a bonus, meet some really cool people. We'll stay there. Really nice hotel. We'll have really great food. You'll hear some things that'll change your life, and we'll go see the sights together. Whatever it is, by hook or by crook. I would not be here if my grandma hadn't lied to me. She told me there would be food at her house, and there wasn't. So even if you've got to trick them a little bit, go. Good grandma. Good grandma.
Hey, Kyle, are you going to Dallas? Kyle,
of course I'm going to Dallas.
I know you're going.
What kind of question is that?
I know you're in the planning team. So what do you want to share about us going? We're going to see you.
It's funny, and Chris, thank you for everything tonight. Everything that you said, Chip. Same. My gosh, I love you guys. But Chris, you reminded me of a story. When you were just telling the story about renting the 2 Suburbans and piling them up, and I probably saw my camera go off. And if I could show my screen, I would show you guys this. I went and looked for it. I have this picture. This is no joke. Because of the importance of events, and back in 2012, we rented 2 charter buses from California to get people to Dallas to an event. And I found a picture of the charter bus with all the people in front of it, because of the importance of it. And it made me think of that story. And Chris, when you're saying that one event, that one weekend, what it did for your business and your people and your teams and guys, these events, I'm telling you, I wish, I'm like, gosh, I want to rent charter buses. How can we do this? Like, how can we make this work? Let's get everybody to Dallas, because Chris is dead on the money, guys. It will change everything for you. It will change everything for your teams. And the importance of these is we can't put it into words. You just have to trust us. You have to trust that it's worth it. And I can promise you, maybe kind of speaking from where I can't say too much, but there is some really cool stuff happening that you guys are going to be super excited about, and I'm going to keep my mouth shut. I cannot spill any beans or I'll get in trouble. But guys, this is a really cool moment in our business. You know, Chip talks about Chris and myself having the ability to see trends and patterns and things, and I will tell you that there is a very big trend about to happen. We're going to see something pretty significant happen with this company, and you're either going to be part of it or you're not. And that's a choice that you have to make. And I think everybody that's on this call has made that choice and that decision to be part of what's happening. You know, there's that old saying of, you know, all ships rise with the tide. Well, that's true as long as your boat's in the water, right? Like, you got to have your boat in the water. And I know everybody on this call, their boat is in the water. And I think, guys, that this is a moment in time, not only just for this month, the month of September, and the goals that you may or may not have this month, but as goals for our company and goals for our future, that we need to go out there and we need to make sure we get more boats in the water. You know, we need to get as many boats as we can in the water right now, because I promise you the tide is rising very fast, and it's going to rise really, really fast. And I hope that we can just make sure that we're doing our part of becoming enthusiasts. I love that, Chip. Seriously, I love that. Because you're right, so many people, I'm not a salesman. And you guys, I'll tell you a little secret real quick. One of the things that I do every single time I get on a phone call is I tell people, I ask people what they do, right? Like, what do you do? Like, obviously, what do you do for a living? And the coolest thing about it is 9 out of 10 times, actually probably more like 9.9 out of 10 times, it has nothing to do with sales, right? And I go, you know what? I love that. I said, me either. I come from a background that has nothing to do with sales. I used to play drums for a living, and then I started telling my story. And the reason that I do that is to make people comfortable and understand that I wasn't a salesman. I'm not a salesman, because so many people, like Chip said, is I don't want to be a salesman. I'm not a salesman, you know? And so figuring out ways to overcome these little objections is key. When we're just sharing something that's amazing that we know is changing people's lives, you'll still get some resistance. And that is a big piece of, that is a roadblock, I should say. People, well, I can't sell anything. You don't have to. So that's one of my little secrets is I find out when somebody does, and I go, you know what? Just like you, I have a background that has nothing to do with sales. I'm not a salesman. I was a rock and roll drummer, you know? And that's how I kind of break the ice a little bit sometimes. So keep that in mind. But guys, let's go out. Let's go put more boats in the water. Let's put cruise ships in the water. How about that? let's put cruise ships in the water, and let's figure out how to get anybody and everybody we can to Dallas. I do know right now, guys, we are that I don't have the numbers in front of me. It doesn't matter, but we're getting down on limited availability for both rooms and for tickets. So if you are going, you need to book your room and you need to book your ticket. Get your ticket, because I said this months ago when we announced this, and this is not a joke. When it sells out, I promise you, it is sold out. There isn't room. They will not allow more people in there. You cannot stand in the hallway. If it's sold out, it's sold out. There's 600 spaces, 600 seats, 600 tickets, right? So you got to make sure you get one, because once they're gone, I promise you, they're gone. It's not oh, we were just kidding. Here's another 200. No, it's at 600. It's maxed. So make sure we get on that with our teams and pass out the word along. So anyway, I'll be quiet. Love you guys. Thank you so much. As always, Christine and Carol, thank you guys for hosting the call. Chip, Chris, amazing guys. Love you so much.
Thank you, everybody. And just remember, practice your two-step, everyone, because in Dallas, we're going to two-step, I'm sure. I've been there many times, and for sure he'll be possibly playing the drums. It's going to be fun. We're going to have a great time, but also we're going to learn. It's about the science, about helping one another, helping our friends and our neighbors. So we have some time to continue to take the education and the facts and the stories and what we've learned tonight from this amazing leadership. So God bless each and every one of you. Chris, thank you for being our guest. Chip, thank you for always being here. And all of you, thank you for being here tonight. This will be recorded. Carol recorded it. Carol, thank you for your technology skills as well. Couldn't do it without you. Everyone have
It will be recorded, and as soon as it downloads on my computer, I upload it into YouTube, and I'll send the link to Christine, and she'll get it out to everyone.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Right.
Have a
Thank
great
you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Good night,
Bye.
everyone.
Good night, all. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chip.
Bye.
Bye.